Welcome to a special edition of Crawford County Outdoors. I'm Dwayne Kohler, joined by Brenda Costa from the French Creek Conservancy. So what's that behind us?
French Creek, beautiful French Creek.
Now, look at my shirt.
I love it.
It's the official Pennsylvania River of the Year, right?
It is.
I'm tickled.
Yeah.
I'm tickled to wear this shirt. I always wear a shirt that says Crawford County Outdoors on, but today
Right.
this was my favorite day. Now I like your shirt too. Now what's that about?
So this is our official French Creek cleanup shirt for this year. This year is actually the 30th French Creek cleanup. It's FCVC's 40th anniversary as an organization, and being named River of the Year, we've had a lot to celebrate.
So the 30th year for the cleanup, that's actually big. Can we do a little history? How did that get started? And then what's all happened in the meantime?
Yeah, so there's a lot of lore that's a little FCVC history about how it used to be kind of a casual gathering of people, and then they'd get together and have a little picnic. But in the last dozen years or so, it's turned into a pretty big event, and now there's competition involved. So people are pretty serious about collecting trash.
Now, let me just ask you, now this is going to sound like a weird question, I already know the answer, but what difference does it make? I mean, does this really help?
Does this really help? Yes, it helps tremendously. It is surprising to me that there is garbage that is collected in this great amount every year in the creek, and thankfully it's not main stem French Creek. I always say, you know, you're not finding a car chassis in the middle of the creek, but we are finding grocery carts.
I did find one time.
Did you?
I did, yes. I think it was the first year that I was part of it. I had my two-man kayak and a bumper and two wheels and the steering wheel and one of the fenders and whatever. It's like I was full, you know. It's like,
yeah.
So I made it a quarter mile out, so I had to drag my kayak back up, and I didn't. I'm thinking we were going to go several miles or whatever, you know. And it's like we picked up this vehicle out of the creek.
Yeah. Well, and you have to remember that we're also the headwaters to all the rivers downstream from us. So all the garbage that's entering French Creek and the tributaries, it'll flow to the Allegheny River. It'll make its way south from there. So not only the impact on French Creek itself, but we want to not send our garbage downstream either.
So 30th year of this, so how many people turned out this year?
So we had more than 800 people registered.
Oh, wow. Wow.
We had over 400 people that came to our picnic at the Cambridge Springs Fireman's Carnival Ground, and we collected 38,875 pounds of garbage.
Oh, 38,000. I mean, when you think about that, you know, just seeing that written in the newspaper or whatever, it's like, okay, but 38,000 pounds, that's a lot. I mean, you know, that's, what, 14, I'm sorry, you know, almost 20 tons of stuff.
It is.
That's huge.
Yeah, and you know, we're not focusing on litter. We're not picking up cigarette butts and little things like that. Sure, participants are picking that up, but you know, we are finding large debris. We half filled a dumpster with metal that thankfully will be recycled at Lincoln, and we'll get the proceeds from that. But we still find some pretty big junk in the creek and its tributaries.
I told you the story before, but one of the times I was doing the creek, we did mill run coming through town, and I fished out 5 shopping carts. And so the thing that kind of got me about that is, why do you throw a shopping cart in the creek? I mean, what is
I don't know the
I
logic
assume
there.
some shopping carts probably got found this time again, right?
They did, and unfortunately there are some that are still in the creek that weren't able to be retrieved this year. But yeah, that seems to be a thing, to throw shopping carts in the creek, and we had at least 2, probably 3 that were retrieved this year.
Oh boy. Okay, so the big picture, now you've kind of expanded this to do things that's even more of a cleanup than just fishing stuff out of the creek. You've done some more things, right? I know the Cussawago meanders, I mean, there was some things going on over there. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so the good thing is we have lots of people that want to help for this event, and we don't have a lot of garbage, and so we had large teams that wanted to make a bigger impact, so we started having some large stewardship events. We planted 250 trees at the event at 2 different locations. The Cussawago Meanders is a property where we had done about 200 trees last year as well.
Wow.
And that's a tremendous help to us at the Conservancy. You know, we have more than 3,200 acres of land, and we need some help taking care of it, so we'd love to have volunteers help out in this way.
That's great. So talk for a second about why plant trees. How's that going to help?
Right, so in the case of Cussawago Meanders, that is an older farm field that had started reverting itself, but by planting trees there, not only are we making habitat for animals there now, but we're creating a future forest, which is kind of exciting, and it's also an area that this serves as a riparian buffer for Cussawago Creek. We're going to improve all those trees and vegetation there. That helps to keep the banks stable, helps to keep the water clean. So those trees have a lot of jobs.
So let me say it in the way my brain. I heard what you said, and so this is an old farm field, and the field's basically over time is going to wash down into the creek and be mud, and it's going to whatever. If we plant it full of trees, now it's going to actually the ground's going to hold. And it's going to stay there, and it's actually going to benefit the creek in a way.
It is, yeah, and not only the creek, but it's the small plants as they are getting bigger. They're habitat for different species of animals now. It's going to become a forest, and it'll be great bird habitat. There's a lot of different species that'll benefit from that.
I love hunting season, so I'd be kind of happy if it was some deer, if it made the deer happy too, to keep them around too.
They'll have a place to hide.
Is there certain kind of trees that work better than others?
Yeah, so we are always sure that we're planting native species. We consult with foresters to be sure that the trees that we're planting are meant to be planted here. Oaks are probably the best and most important trees to plant going forward. They are going to be most climate resilient as we see some changes in the climate in this area.
Also on deer season, I always set up my tree stand next to an oak tree because they love eating those acorns.
Yep.
So, okay. So that's good. I'm happy hearing you say that. Okay.
Yeah, so very often oaks, but then we have a variety of smaller trees too, maybe flowering trees. Having a variety of species is really important. So we're not going out and planting 20 or 200 American oaks. We've got 5 different species that we've planted at that location.
So is there a certain type of oak that works better than another type? I know there's a few white oaks in this area where I like to go hunting, and the deer love those white oak acorns, and the red oak acorns they like those ones too, but they like the white ones better. But it seems like the white oak trees take forever to grow. Am I right about that, or is that?
Yeah, oak trees are slow growing.
Okay.
They're not terribly fast growing, but they're going to be a really strong established hardwood. We had some swamp oaks that we planted during this past Saturday, but we're participating in the Keystone 10 Million Trees program. And this is a program where we're trying to plant 10 million trees throughout Pennsylvania over an 8-year span.
Wow.
And so those trees are given to us, and the supplies to plant those trees are provided for us. So that's a huge cost savings for us, but it's part of this greater project to reforest Pennsylvania.
So is the planting difficult? Do you have to really make a giant hole to spread out the roots, or can you just kind of?
No, these are pretty small, and this is really the beauty of having volunteers help us. We had kindergartners helping plant trees on Saturday, and I love not only to be getting that work done, but to inspire these really young children.
Say, getting young kids involved, that's got to be a wonderful thing.
Yeah, so that's really fun, and all of these projects, we can find somebody to help us in any way on Saturday for the cleanup. There's a job for everybody, so it was really great to have such a good turnout.
Now, am I right about this? A number of our local sports teams came together as a team and came out to the event, is that right?
Yes, so the Meadville Bulldog hockey team, they were our official trash unloaders. They came and got dirty and unloaded trash from the vehicles as they brought them in to weigh them in. We had a number of Allegheny sports teams who came, and they were part of one of the tree plantings. We had a trail clearing project on our Lew's Land property. So, I mean, we had quite a few kids involved, but a lot of different sports teams.
Oh, that's awesome. So you mentioned before about the emptying the trash out, at Cambridge Springs. Is that the first time for Cambridge Springs? Is that the first time that's been the?
That is the first time.
Okay.
Yeah, that was our intended location in 2020, but unfortunately with the pandemic, we weren't able to have it there. Our desire has been to move the event throughout the watershed so we could better engage people through all of these different areas. It worked out really well for us. I think we will try to have it there again. There's a nice traffic flow, a nice space, and we were really appreciative of the borough for letting us have it there.
And it's actually really close to the creek.
Yes.
It's right on the creek. I mean, well, you and I, the first time we did a paddle down the creek show for the outdoor show, we started up there and went past.
Not far from there.
Unfortunately, the old hotel had burned down
That's
recently,
right.
and they were in the process of working on a replacement and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Which was, I think that's what we talked about the whole time. But the cleanup thing, that's great. I know before it had been Cochrane, before it had been Venango, it had been other places where you had the meeting to gather up all the stuff that you brought.
Yeah, it's tricky to find a location because we've got to have a place where we can have dumpsters sit and have a lot of people park. But Cambridge Springs worked out really well for us, and we were appreciative that the firemen let us use their kitchen building so we could have our picnic there. It was great.
So you think that all the volunteers are going to be in the water picking up stuff and whatever, but actually you need a whole bunch of the volunteers at the other end unloading people's trucks and their vehicles and their minivans and everything and taking the stuff and getting it into the dumpsters, right?
Yeah, I would bet there's probably 50 to 100 people that are helping us on site. We were delighted this year. We had a group of residents from Westbury who came and helped with our picnic.
Okay.
So that was really fun. We had new people helping with the weigh-in. It was great to see new faces, but it takes a lot of people both to be the participants collecting the trash and then the people helping out at the event.
So what's the the Pennsylvania River of the Year now, French Creek or whatever. I mean, is this part of it? Is this kind of one of the things that really made Pennsylvania look at French Creek? Does this here's my question. Does this happen every place else, or does this just happen here?
Other places, a lot of places do have a watershed cleanup or a creek cleanup.
Do 800 people come out from those ones like they do here?
No, they don't. People are usually shocked when I tell them the number of people that we have.
So Brenda, down the road, I mean, is this going to keep going on, for the next 10 or 15 years or whatever? Are we going to still be talking about the cleanup day?
I think so. We'd love to have this event continue on. I would hope that maybe we don't have a lot of trash as we go forward, but I would love to continue to have these large groups help us with our stewardship projects, help us take care of this land that we're protecting.
If you don't have a ton of trash, if you don't have 28 tons of trash every time, maybe you can do some of the other things like you mentioned before about saving the land from all washing down in the creek and washing away and all that.
That's right, and there's always going to be trash in French Creek, and it's always going to need some attention, but it would be great if we could shift some more people from trash collection to doing some conservation work.
Okay, so when you and I had our interview, when we first heard that the French Creek, was named the Pennsylvania River of the Year, you mentioned, a bunch of events that were coming up this year. So can you go back over that again and touch on them?
All that we've had?
There was a lot, right? There's
a lot. We decided that we were going to go big, and we've had an event every month, sometimes two. January and February, we had our Woods and Waters film series that we co-host with Foundation for Sustainable Forests. We had a winter property walk, and you came along on that one on a very snowy day out on Cusawaga Meander.
And the wind was blowing like crazy, whatever.
Yeah, that was
for
the hardy folks.
That was cool. That really was neat.
It was. It's neat to see our properties in the winter. In April, we did a stewardship day. We planted a couple hundred trees at one of our properties in Erie County, and all new volunteers came out to help that day. What was May? I can't remember what May was. It'll come to me. But June, we had our summer sojourn, our paddling event.
Right.
We had 160 people launch from right here at Bicentennial Park.
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, so that was big. In July, we had a 40th anniversary dinner for our members and our donors. August, we had our river snorkeling trip. We went snorkeling up near Venango.
Oh, wow.
And that was really cool. You could see all of the fish and the freshwater mussels underwater. That was a really neat one. We just did cleanup this past week. We're having a tap talk. We're having Dr. Sam Mason from Penn State Barron come to talk about microplastics. We'll be over at Voodoo for that. And then in October, we're having a fall float on October 1st.
Wow.
A walk in Penn's Woods on October 2nd.
Wow.
And then in November, we're going to visit one more of our properties, and then we're taking December off.
Excellent. So one of my favorite things is, May and June, great time to go for a paddle trip, and that's when you and I did our, our River of the Year paddle trip. And then like July, August, you end up having to walk half the way because it's like the water gets, the water gets kind of low.
It was really low this year.
But then September and October it starts coming back.
Yep.
Right. So this is not a bad time to get out there and get your boat out there. And
that's right. Yeah, I get a notification on my phone every day. I'm a creek nerd. Every day I know what the water level is. But right now it's at a level that I would get back to kayaking. And it's still a beautiful temperature out, so there's still some paddling season yet to go.
So that's I think when we first started the Crawford County Outdoor Show, and I can't remember what year it was, 2008 maybe? So it was a long time ago anyways. That was I think the third show was we came down French Creek, and that was in September when we did that. And that was awesome. Well, actually we ended right here. We started in Sagertown and came and got out of the creek right here. So over the I think we've done it 4 different times, paddled different parts of the creek. So we've covered almost all of Crawford County. We haven't covered. We started out one time and went down to Cochrane. We started it in Cambridge Springs. You and I did with Brian Pilarczyk, and went down to Venango and then Sagertown to meet. So I guess we haven't done Venango to Sagertown. That's something else. We'll have to do that one sometime.
Well, and that's what we're doing for our fall float.
Awesome.
So
awesome. Okay.
We'll have to get out there. Yeah.
But our trip this year was from over in Fifth Ward.
Our Joe Cat launch.
Down to the Ernst Trail area, down to that area. That was really cool.
Yeah.
That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and it's really neat because the creek really is different in all of the sections. So there's always something new and different to see.
Let me just say something that I've said every single time we've ever done anything about the creek. It's like everybody passes over, on the way to work or on the way to the grocery store or whatever, never thinks really anything about it. When you get out on your boat and you're on the creek, it's all of a sudden like a whole different, do you even know that this is what Crawford County's like,
Yeah, I mean, it really is.
Our show is Crawford County Outdoors, and it's like, you're sitting in the car and you're crossing over Smock Bridge or whatever. You don't even think about the fact that you're crossing over the creek. But when you're actually in it's beautiful. I mean, it's just,
it really is.
There's signs up all over the place. French Creek, a community treasure, and it truly is.
Yeah, it truly is. I wish everybody had an opportunity to get on the water. It's a really unique vantage point, but boy, it's beautiful, and we're really fortunate to have it in our area.
Well, Brenda, congratulations on having the River of the Year.
Thanks,
and for
Frank.
having the big cleanup day, and for having all the other events that were going on this year. And so thank you for joining us here. Chef Lisa is coming up next. She's going to do a great recipe, so stay with us. Joining us now, Chef Lisa. Lisa, 800 people showed up for the French Creek cleanup this year. Isn't that wild?
That's fantastic.
That's really something.
That's really a nice thing.
I was talking to Brenda about that, and it's like, it's hard to imagine. I never hear of any other place that people really get into a community event like that, that really want to help with a cleanup, with a cleanup situation. Right. So, I mean, and a bunch of them were at the dumpster side, and not quite as many go in the creek before, because the creek is much more cleaned up than it used to be. But still, that just blew me away.
It's amazing.
800 people.
Hence the reason our creek is so clean.
Yeah, right.
Creek of the Year.
Pennsylvania. I wore my Pennsylvania.
He wore
my Pennsylvania River of the Year, French Creek.
There you go. There you go. That's the reason, because we take care of it. And there's 800 people showing up to clean it, so.
And there's signs around the community treasure. It really is a community treasure. It really is.
I've always felt that way.
So what was your idea for a recipe today?
My idea today is use the vegetables that you have in your garden. Recipe.
Right. Fall is coming quickly here.
It is, and we have an abundance of tomatoes and zucchini, so I'm always trying to find new recipes. I made this as a side dish, and everybody seemed to like it. It's super easy. You can use this as a base and add meat to it if you want. I didn't, because I did it as a side dish, but you'll get the idea once you see us put it together. It's really simple. So, so we heated our oven to 375. Mind you could do this in a smaller pan and do more layers. We're going to do it in 8.5 by 11 dish, 9 by 11, whatever this is, and it'll be a little flatter. But you could do it, in a smaller 9 by 9, and you could, layer it up higher.
Okay.
But what I'll have you do is, you're famous for spraying with the olive oil spray. Get the bottom and the sides, And like I said, we're all heated up, ready to go. Perfect. We're good. And we've got 4 to 5 tomatoes. I actually have some Romas in here because, like I said, I'm trying to use up what's in my garden. And a couple of the beef steak. Doesn't really matter what kind of tomato, but you're going to slice them up, 4 or 5 of them. And this is either you're using 1 large, 2 medium, 3 small. This is 2 medium zucchini, and I sliced them thin. You could use one of those mandolins, and you could slice them real thin, but I did it by hand. Some of them are a little thicker than others, but I don't think it's going to matter. So those are ready to go. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take 2 cups of mozzarella cheese, and we're going to add the spices to it, okay? So we have about a teaspoon of garlic, or garlic powder, not salt.
Okay.
And, you know, from the garden, basil,
Yes.
about the same amount of basil. That might be a little bit more, but I go crazy on that because I love my fresh herbs. I ran out of oregano. I need to dry some more, so I did happen to have some stuff that was dried. So that's about a teaspoon of each. And you're going to add, you know, a good amount of salt and pepper for flavoring. The butter that I'm using is no salt, so I can put a little extra in there. And then we're just going to mix that up. Oh, I didn't really crush that basil real well, but that's okay. If I have a larger piece, I'm not going to have a problem with that because I love my basil. And so you have your cheese is now seasoned. Just get that mixed up real well. And then we've already sprayed the pan, so I'm just going to sprinkle just a little bit on the bottom.
Okay.
Okay, just a little, just to coat it. And then we're going to take our zucchini, and we're going to just put it right in there. Just all over on top of the cheese. So zucchini goes in first.
How did your zucchini, did you have a lot of zucchini this year?
I did at first, and then towards the end I was down to 1 plant because we got some bug that invaded, and we were struggling. Yeah, we were struggling with that. So then I'm going to sprinkle just a little bit more. I don't need too much, and then I'm going to put some tomatoes on there. You'll see there's different sizes. You can tell there's different varieties in here. Here's, you know, some of my smaller ones. There's aroma. Here's part of aroma.
Okay.
And then, you know, we'll just put a little bit more.
The aroma ones were fine in the salsa show. They were much easier to clean than the bigger ones
They're
were.
meatier. They're not as juicy. That's why.
I really hadn't thought about that kind of thing, but so maybe down the road, maybe we'll work on them down the road.
I love aroma tomato. I use them for most everything because they are meatier, and you know, if anything, I mean, if you want something with more juice, yeah, definitely you're gonna use a different type of tomato, but I like them. I'm just gonna use put the rest of these in here and just kind of spread them out. Do a little more cheese, just another layer.
So it's just layers is what you're doing here,
that's
right?
all I'm doing.
Okay.
You know, giving it, because there's seasoning in here, so you're seasoning them as you go. We'll finish with the tomatoes. I don't know that I'm going to use them all. You can see some are a little more ripe than others.
Okay.
And then I'm going to finish with cheese. Yeah, you can do this 1 layer, 2 layers in a higher pan. It doesn't really matter. Do it however you want, but you get the idea. And then the last thing I'm going to do, wipe my hands on my apron here, is I'm going to take a cup of breadcrumbs. And these are seasoned breadcrumbs. I prefer to use that because it's just more flavor. I melted 2 tablespoons of butter, so I'm just going to pour that in there and mix that up, just so the butter is mixed with the breadcrumbs. It gets a little lumpy, but I like to use a fork. Just get that in there. Then we're going to pour these breadcrumbs over the top. Whoops, making a mess. And then we're going to bake it. Okay, so I think got that done. We're just going to pour this over the top. Our buttered breadcrumbs.
So that's just kind of a top coating, huh?
Yep. That's really all it is. Okay.
But that recipe was really, I mean, that was just, what, 3 minutes, 4
Yeah,
minutes? I
not
mean,
even-
that did not take long at all.
Not long at all. Then we're just going to cover it. So this is how we bake it, though. We're going to bake it for 25 minutes covered. And then we're going to take the cover off and bake it for another 20 minutes just to make sure that the vegetables are done. Okay, so let's stick that in the oven, Dwayne. Bottom shelf.
There it goes, bottom shelf.
Yep. And we'll set the
right.
timer, and we'll give it a good 40 minutes and 45 minutes by the time it's done.
Awesome. Lisa, that looks wonderful.
Thank
It
you.
smells great.
Yeah, yeah. It's a nice way to use up some of your vegetables
How about that?
you know, at the end of the season. It's another good recipe. Like I said, it could be a side dish, which that's what we're using it for. But it could also be, you know, add some meat to it. It could be a main dish.
So would you just like crumble up some meat and brown it and then sprinkle it in with, layer it in with the other stuff?
You could do that. You know, season it with maybe some onion and maybe some garlic, and then skip the garlic salt or garlic powder. You could also saute some chicken, slice it up into small pieces, or if you had some leftover chicken, throw it in there, and it would just really heat it up. Anything like that. Look at that. It's hot. I always say that. Be careful. It's good to let this too, when you're done with it, let it sit for a couple of minutes and kind of reincorporate, you know, because there's going to be liquid in the bottom, obviously, because we're dealing with tomatoes and zucchini. But yeah, so let it sit for a couple of minutes before you actually serve it. And oh, it's nice and soft.
Over my shoulder here, Lulu says, hey, how about dropping some on the floor for
Yeah,
me?
and you know, she could be a vegetarian. She would be very happy. Ooh, this is really, really hot, so be careful. If we dropped a tomato, because you know, we had to put the invisible fence flags around the tomato plants because she eats them.
Wow, that is awesome. That's just really great.
It's a great side dish. Everyone in my family was pleased with this. Really enjoyed it. Like I said, it wouldn't be a big deal to throw some meat in this. Sausage would be good. Cook up some sausage.
That would be good.
Sausage
yeah.
is always good and everything. You could even put this over. You could do it over rice or pasta if you wanted, because there's a little liquid in the bottom. But it's definitely an easy one, and I'm always about that. And you're getting your vegetables. Let me see.
Well, Lisa, thank you for the awesome recipe.
You're welcome.
And thank you to Brenda Costa from the French Creek Conservancy for helping us with the show today, and for all the volunteers out there. That's just a wonderful thing. I'm so tickled we could have this as a topic for the show today.
I agree.
And especially thanks to the folks at home for joining us, and we'll talk to you next time. And I'm finishing my
Me too.
casserole here.